What if I told you that bourbon survived Prohibition, not because Americans were clever bootleggers, but because doctors suddenly decided whiskey was the miracle cure for, well, everything? I'm talking coughs, anxiety, the flu, stubbed toes, bad luck, heartbreak, probably even taxes if you use the right phrasing. At a time when the government banned alcohol outright, it accidentally turned bourbon into the most popular medicine in the country. And right at the center of this medically questionable miracle stood Old Forester, one of only 6 distilleries in America allowed to keep producing whiskey legally. Not for cocktails, not for parties. Strictly for health reasons, of course. When the Volstead Act shut down distilleries and dried up the nation, it left one loophole wide open. Physicians could prescribe whiskey. Not recommend. Not suggest in moderation. Prescribe. You'd walk into a doctor's office complaining about nervousness, influenza, or the emotional devastation of Mondays, and walk out with a written order for a pint of bourbon. Patients were allowed 1 pint every 10 days, which meant doctors suddenly became the gatekeepers to the good stuff. Pharmacies turned into the strangest kind of liquor store imaginable, with long lines of citizens all discovering that they were, somehow, mysteriously unwell every 10 days on the dot. Old Forester was perfectly positioned for this bizarre twist in history. They received Medicinal License Number 3, granting them legal permission to continue distilling whiskey while everyone else was either shut down or selling industrial ethanol for paint thinner. But Old Forester didn't get picked by luck. They were already the teacher's pet of the bourbon world. In 1897, they were among the first to adopt the Bottled-in Bond Act, meaning their whiskey was guaranteed to be at least 4 years old, 100 proof, and produced under federal supervision. Basically, if bourbon had a valedictorian, it was Old Forester. So when the U.S. government needed medicinal whiskey, this was the brand they trusted not to poison half the population. Now here's where the history actually changes the flavor inside your glass. Whiskey evaporates as it ages, the famous angel's share. And as the angels help themselves, the proof rises. A barrel that entered storage at 100 proof might climb to 110 or even 115 over the years. During Prohibition, this wasn't a stylistic choice. It was a regulatory requirement. Doctors needed to prescribe a consistent strength, so the whiskey had to be bottled at its natural higher proof. In other words, the bourbon wasn't strong because it wanted to be strong. It was strong because the law demanded it. Imagine bottling something at 115 proof and telling people, yes, this is absolutely the dosage your doctor recommends. No wonder the pharmacies were packed. That higher proof DNA is exactly what you taste today in Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style. The number on the label isn't just a nod to the past. It's a flavor profile created by survival, regulation, and the absolute refusal of Americans to give up bourbon even when the government told them to drink water and behave themselves. So, what does this history actually taste like? First, the color. It's a deep, rich amber that looks like it was designed by a team of dessert chefs and woodworkers. Before you even raise it to your nose, it warns you that this is not a gentle bourbon. On the nose, you get dark cherry, orange marmalade, clove, nutmeg, and oak, seasoned like it's been doing push-ups in a warehouse for the better part of a decade. There's also a dark chocolate note that feels like someone snuck a brownie into the barrel just to see what would happen. Take a sip neat, and that 115 proof comes at you with the warmth of a long-lost uncle who hugs too hard but means well. It's intense, but not chaotic. Caramelized banana, rich toffee, dark stone fruits, and oak that provides structure rather than punishment. It's bold, confident bourbon, the kind that knows it survived Prohibition and doesn't feel the need to apologize for anything. Add a few drops of water, and the whole thing relaxes, almost like it took off its boots and loosened its tie. Vanilla steps forward, caramel smooths out, and the spice shifts from sharp heat to gentle warmth. The finish stretches out with honey, toasted nuts, and a sense that yes, maybe this really was medicine after all, at least spiritually. As for food pairings, you want flavors that won't collapse under the proof. High-percentage dark chocolate echoes its cocoa notes. Aged cheddar cuts through the sweetness with a savory punch. Spicy cured meats dance nicely with the baking spices, creating a combination so good you may start writing your own prescriptions. In the end, this bottle is more than bourbon. It's a time capsule, a surviving artifact from an era when the country dried up, doctors became bartenders, and Old Forester kept bourbon alive by following the rules so well it was legally allowed to break them. Every sip of 1920 is a tribute to that wild, improbable moment in history when whiskey's best friend was the American healthcare system. So what do you think of bourbon's medical career? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and stick around, because some of the other stories behind your favorite bottles are even stranger.